control structures, conditional statements, and looping. And then we also did an intro to functions. So today we'll just complete we'll complete our function class, and then we'll learn a little bit about classes. Okay. So let me share my screen. Okay. Zoom, you guys can see my screen. Okay, so we'll be looking at the return statement in a Python function. That was what we didn't discuss last time. So looking at what a return statement is. So let's say we have a function calculate. And then it accepts an argument or two arguments, A and B. So we want this function to return the sum of these values. So whenever the calculate function is called, it should calculate A and B, the values of the two, it should calculate the sum of the two numbers and then return it to the caller. So let me just pass here. So let's say sum of numbers is equal to calculate. And then I'm going to pass in 23 and 66. Okay. So what we can do is we can use a return statement. So the return statement serves two purposes in Python. One, when you write return inside of your Python function, it terminates the function and then passes control to the caller. And then it also provides a way for you to send data to the caller. So let's say do return. We can say the value you want to return. We can say return A plus B. And when you print sum of numbers, you see that the value returned from, in this line 5, what we're doing, like returning, saving the value we get from the calculate function that was returned in the calculate function into numbers. So you can see that the value is inside of sum of numbers. When you print it, it's just there. So like it also says end or exit the function. So whenever you put return in your function, like that, at that point is where it exits it or like immediately closes the function. So you can use return statements in different parts of your code. So let's say we want to terminate this function if A is less than 30. We can do this. We can say if A is less than 30, return. And then, okay, when you try to run it, you see that it's returning none. So like when you return nothing, when you don't return anything in your function, the value is actually none. So that's how to use return statements multiple times in your code. Okay, and also to return value. So you can return any kind of data type, like any data type. You can return lists. can return a list, you can return a dictionary, you can return any data type inside, like in your function. So if you return, you can also like return separate values, like you can return several values, but then you separate them by with commas. And when the caller like receives that value, it will be returned as a tuple. So we can say return A and B, A comma B. Remove this if function. Yeah. So you can see that it's returned as a tuple here. Then you can maybe unpack your values that you get. So you can return just any kind of function. So any kind of data type inside of your function, please. So you can also return none. You can return none. So when you do not return any value, it is none. So if you just do return, like when I printed this, you see that. What's this? Okay. So when I printed this before, you see that it's returned none. So let's say you have a function to calculate something or to do a particular task, and you can like if the function doesn't return any kind of value, I don't have to. So like let's say your function doesn't return anything or doesn't return the kind of data you're expecting it to return, you can now say, okay, normally if you check for the Boolean, if you convert this none to Boolean, it's going to give you false. So you can say if your function here, let's say if calculate is none, or you can even compare it with another function. Let's say you create another function, you can compare them. Let's say calculate, or let's see, and just add and divide. So you can compare the values that are returned. You can say if calculate and so if add and divide, then do this, something like that. So based on whatever value it is returning to you. So I think that's that for functions. You can also so there are times when you do not know how many arguments will be passed to a function. So let's say let's say you want to sum a list of, or let me say list of numbers. You want to sum any number, any amount of numbers that are sent to you. It could be 3 numbers, 4 numbers, 5 numbers. You do not know how many numbers your user will pass. So you just want to sum them up. So it's like a variable is like the length of your argument is varying. So you can do something. Let me make this very clear, because I think I don't know if I'm confusing you guys, but let me just make this very clear. So let's say you want to sum values, but you do not know how many values are going to be passed to your function. You can use default parameters. Like I said, you can say, okay, let's say 1 or 2 values will be passed. You can say A, B, C. So let's say if let's say the user sends just one value, you can say, okay, if a user sends just one value, then the rest parameters should just be automatically 0, or the remaining arguments should be 0, like this. Or you can just say you don't know, since you don't know how many, you can just say A, B, C, D, and like have like 30, you can have like 30 parameters, because you don't know exactly how many values that your user is going to pass to you. But then there are like drawbacks to leaving it like that, because number one, you do not know if the sum of the values is actually the sum of all of the values your user passed, or if it is a sum of the first value. That's like if your user passes just two values, for example, so the sum of the first value, the second value, and then the rest are equal to 0, like this. I don't know if am I clear at all? Or should I go back? Am I clear? Please go back. Okay. So let's say you do not know how many value or how many arguments will be passed into your function. There are different ways, like there are different approaches you can use. So if I do not know if let's say my user wants to sum like two values, say 2 and 3. But I want my function to be able to accommodate any number of arguments. So whether my user adds 4, 5, or 6 arguments, or passes 4, 5, or 6 arguments to the function, my function should be able to return the sum. So one way you can do is, you can do this. You can say A, B, C, D, E. Okay. And then you can say return A plus B plus C plus D plus E. Something like this. You can do this. Or you can say, if my user does not pass in exactly the amount of values I'm expecting, maybe it passes in just 2. In this case, passes in just 2 values. I want to have a default parameter and say, in case it doesn't pass up to 5, let the default of the rest be 0. You can do this. But the problem here is that if you add 2 plus 3 now, if you add 2 plus, excuse me. So if the value that's going to be returned by some values here is going to be 5, now you do not know if the user actually passed in up to 4 or 5 values. You just know that, okay, it's returning a sum. So there are going to be inconsistencies. So another thing you can also do is, another workaround is to pass in a list. You can say, okay, I'm just going to pass in a list of all of the values I want to be summed, like this. And then you just, inside of here, you just take in the list of the values. And then you say, okay, and then maybe look through the list and sum them up, sum the elements up. But then what if you just, your user might not want to pass in a list. He just wants to pass in any number of values. He doesn't want to pass in a list because he just doesn't want to. So what you can do is, you can do a variable length argument list. So if you want to pass in any number of values, you just have to do what's the word? Tuple packing. So you have like, let me do this. So you want, okay, so how you do argument tuple packing is you start with inside of your parameter, inside of the brackets, you just start with an asterisk here, and then you say what you just give whatever name you want to give your argument. So you can just say values. But then if it starts with an asterisk, any number of values you pass to the function is going to be packed into a tuple, and then inside of the function you can refer to these values, like this parameter here, you can refer to it and just pick each of the numbers that you called. So in this case, you can just leave your function the way it is. So pass your arguments just like this. And then if you do asterisk and the name of your parameter, it just packs all of these values, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into a tuple. But then like generally people just use this args word here. So like that's what you see in most people's code. You can use any one you want, but that's what you generally see. So if we print args here, you see that it is a tuple. If you print the type, of args, you see it's of a type tuple. So you can also like use it the way you use a normal tuple and just say, let me see the length of this value of this argument. You can see it's of length 5. And then you can loop through it for like this. And then like it just goes through all of it. So when you do not know how many arguments are going to pass, you just use argument tuple packing. Put an asterisk in front of the parameter, in front of the parameter. Then you put the name, and then you can use that variable any way you like. Is that clear? Yes. So in the same, like let me not say in the same way, but like something like that's like kind of like opposite to what this does is you can also do tuple unpacking. So let's say let's say we don't want to have this here like this. We want to say values is equal to this tuple. So we can unpack these values by doing another star values. So actually we can do tuple packing and tuple unpacking together, but let's just collect this as an argument. So let's just call this value. Okay, actually it's sorry, you can't do this. So what's doing the same thing. So what you do is let's say you're expecting 5 values. So let's say A, B, C, D, E. So if you print A, B, C, D, E, can go. You can see like all of the values are printed. So what this thing is just saying is, I want you to pack these values bring this to like unpack them here inside of this. When you're calling some values, I want you to take that tuple and then unpack them. So by the time your sum values is receiving these arguments, it's going to receive them as separate values. So not like a tuple or something. So that's and you can also do like use both of the concepts together. Okay, I hope that was clear. So I want us to do some exercises quickly. So if you do not have your laptop with you, please just type into the chat box and okay, type into the chat box whatever exercise I'm giving you. So the first one, I want you to create a function. I want you to create a function that returns that calculates, or let me say that calculates the sum of two values. And okay, no, let me say it like this. I want you to create a function that does both addition and subtraction of two values and then returns the values. So let's say if I send in a value 23 and 55, then I want you to return to me the addition of the values and when you subtract them together. So when you subtract maybe the absolute value of when you subtract those values. Okay, Mandy, you have a question?
Those will be two functions.
What did you say? No, one function, just one function. It's going to return both the values when you add them together and when you like the absolute value of when you subtract one from the other. Is that
Okay.
clear?
My question, like, is okay. This question you're giving us, like, is going to return both the addition of the numbers and the subtract and the
Yes.
difference of the numbers. Okay. My question about this that you just learned, this star args that you just taught now. Peradventure, the values, like the values are more than here you have 5. The values are length 5 here, but in the function, in the arguments, they have 5 arguments there. What if these values are like 10 arguments? Do you need to increase the amount of, what if these values are like length 10 and the arguments in the function stays the way it is? I don't know if you understand me.
Okay, so this is what happens. It says some values take 5 positional arguments, but 6 were given. So you treat it the same way you treat if you are sending the same way you call this function and send in how many of the parameters that were created is the same way you also also the same way you also like create your values. So you don't say because it still has to be the same number of arguments that were outlined or defined. Do you get?
Yeah. But isn't there another way we can actually, do it in such a way that okay, I get you perfectly though. I was thinking, all right.
Okay. So it's still like this, what this is saying 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, what I was going to suggest was, is there a way we can actually leave that the parameter in the function as star args, then loop through whatever the length is, then always then get instead of
use
always
both of them together.
the amount of arguments and all, so that these values, even if you put 20, we'll still get the sum and not alter the length of arguments in the function.
Okay, so I said before that you can use argument packing and packing together. But I was trying to explain just this argument, like when you're packing them and sending them to a function. You get?
Yeah, I get you perfectly now. Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can use them together if
Okay.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so about the exercise. Do you guys all get the exercise I want you to do?
Yes, we are on it.
Okay, so I'm waiting for you guys. Okay. So are you guys done? So what's up? Okay. What about Imole? So for you that those that are done, I want you to create a function with variable length, argument. Just create a random function with variable length argument. Are you guys done? Do you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Okay. So what about Imole? Okay, I'm seeing your answers. So I want you to create a function that has default arguments. Okay, Mendy, what are you saying?
Sorry, that was a mistake. Oh, sorry.
Okay. A function with default parameters and positional that accepts the okay, so a default parameter is one that has a default value. So in case an argument is not passed, then it already has a default value inside of the function. So just look at what Mendy did now. You can see inside of his action function, he has parameters A and B. They already have default values, 3 and 5. So even if the user doesn't like specify the arguments, like he doesn't specify the arguments, then he's still going to get a value. We're going to still get a return value.
Please,
Yes?
please, what if you have your default value to be 0 and you are
Okay.
doing division, and I know very well that Python does not accept 0 addition. What do we do? Because you don't know the value that the person is.
Okay, so who is who is the person that is writing the Python code? Are you the one?
Yes.
So you know that Python does not allow so you know your device, store, and you know the value you are dividing by. So you should know which one you are going to give a default value so that you do not run into an error because you are the one creating the Python function. So you know which one which one is going to be divided, the value is going to be divided by. Do you understand? So at the end of the day, if you have that kind of error, it's going to be your own logic. It's going to be a logical error because you did not maybe think through the didn't think through the process very well. So you already know like the syntax, so you have to follow it. You get?
Yes.
Okay. But I'm not seeing your own exercises. I'm not seeing your own.
On the default.
Yes, no. I'm only seeing 3 people's, Emmanuel, Imole, and Mendy. Okay, so like we've tried. Let's just move to introduction to classes. So in Python, like objects are like at the center of OOP. So you always like run into classes. Once in a while, you are also going to create classes. So classes provide a way for you to they provide a way for you to have to create your own data structures. So if you remember, when you create a variable, if you create a variable and you check the type of that variable, you see it belongs to a particular class. But then there are times when just int or list or dict is not going to be enough for you to manage your data. So let's say you want to create, you are creating a HR software, and you want to manage employees in that software. So it might not be okay for you to just store only the values, like only the details of that particular employee. You might want to perform some kind of action on that particular employee. So with classes, you can create your own user-defined data structures and like say whatever you want. You can give your objects you can give them properties, and then you can say what methods you want to be applied on them, or you want to be performed on them. So classes are like most if you check what classes are like, generally you hear that they are the blueprint for creating objects. So that's exactly what they are. So it's like when you are filling out a form, if you want a class of 10 students to fill out forms, blank forms, you pass out all the forms to them. When they are creating those forms, they fill in their own personal details. So classes are just like a blank, basically. So they do not have any kind of data attached to them. It is when it is instantiated, that is when data becomes created. So it's like when the form is filled up, that's when you now see, okay, you now see the details inside of all of those forms, and they're like specific to each individual. So when you create an object from a class, each of those objects are like unique. So one object is not similar, or let me not say similar, it's not equal to another object. So inside of your classes, you can define functions. So functions inside classes are called methods. And like I said, you can use them to say, okay, the actions or behaviors of those particular objects. Now, let's talk about defining classes in Python now. So let's say we want to define a class. if to define a class, what keyword do you think we should use or we would use? What keyword would we use to define a class? Does anybody know? Yes, class, the class keyword. So you type in the class keyword and then you say the name of the class. It should be, usually in Python, it's if you want to create a user-defined class, your classes should begin with upper case. So it should be what do you call camel case. So let's say you want to define a person class or a user class. You can do this, type into user, and then put in a semicolon. Then you put in whatever you want to yada 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 inside of the class. But now we do not want to put anything inside our class. So what do you think we can put as a placeholder? Because we don't want to put anything inside our class now. What do you think we can put as a placeholder? What keyword comes to your mind? Good, the pass keyword. So like your caterpillar is not going to yell at you now. Great. So now, so let me just say like I said now, each object is unique in its own, is unique to its own, is unique. That's the word. So let's say I want to create a user object. Okay. So let's say I want to create a user object. What I just need to do is to let me just do like this. So you just create or instantiate a user object by doing, let me say user one. Sorry, side of the chats. Okay. Where is my phone? Where is my class? Okay. So user one is equal to user, and then you put in a bracket like this, something similar to when you're calling a function. So now you've created a user object. So let's print out this user object and see what we get. So you see inside of here, we have user object at so and so and so location. So user objects are unique. So let's just create another user and see if they are in like in the same locations or in different locations. So you can see that there are different locations. So there are two distinct objects. Okay. So if you want to like I said, you can give your objects, like your objects can have, or your objects can have properties. So if you want when you are defining an object, you want it to be assigned unique properties. What is this now? So you want it to be defined, you want them to be assigned unique properties. What you need to do is you need to create a method, a method called the init method. So you just do this. You define like defining a function inside of a class. So you just do 2 underscores, you type init, another 2 underscores, and then you pass in self. Then whatever properties you want your object to have when they are first created, you now put them. So what properties do we normally give to users when we first create them? When you create a user, what properties do they usually have? Does anybody know?
Yeah, their names, their first name, second name.
Okay.
Yeah, country,
They usually have email addresses, yeah?
Addresses.
So let's say we don't really want to know their age.
Password.
Okay, let's say username, email address, and password. So these ones are enough. Okay, and then you now inside of here you now assign the value. So let me tell you what happens when you create when you are creating your init function. You have to first pass the first variable you pass is called to self. So when you are creating a new instance of that class, what you are doing is you are passing that object you've defined into the class. So any value you are assigning at that point is going to be for just that object. Okay, so now when I said class, I actually meant like this self parameter itself. So this self is the object. Okay, so it's if in this case now this self is going to be user1, and in this case this self is going to be user2. So if we want to assign these values, we just say self, that's like user1 in this. Let me just comment this one out. So here now we are saying user1, which is passed to self, dot username is equal to username. And then self dot email is equal to email, and self dot password is equal to password. So when you are initializing or instantiating your the class, what you have to do is you have to put in these values that were defined here. So let's say the username is Mia, and then the okay, and then my email is mia@gmail.com, and then my password is a secret. So now you've created your user. So how do we access these values? Let's say we want to print out this user's username, email, and password. We use the dot notation. So okay. So we use the dot notation. So if we say print user1 dot email, okay. If you say print user1 dot email, it prints out that user's email. You say print user1 dot username, it prints out the user's username. So in this way now you can create as many user objects as you like. So I can just say, okay, I want to create another user2. And then you can pass in different values. So when you create it, you can see that it will return the user's username in the same way. So that's that for instantiating an object. So let me just quickly say something. These attributes that you create, that are created when you pass in, like that are created inside of this init function. Let me say that inside of these init functions, they are called instance attributes. So like you saw, those attributes are like they are peculiar to just that object. So they are just for that object. But what if you want let's say you want to create an attribute that is for all of the objects, like whenever an object is created, it just automatically it becomes automatically assigned to that object. you can create something called a class attribute. So you add your class attribute just before the first method there. So let's say we want to save user type, and like we want all our objects to have a user type of let's say admin. So you can just like you can just add the class attribute there, and then any object that is created is going to have that attribute of user type admin, or whichever one you want to, whichever class attribute you want to add. So we'll now talk about methods, like instance methods are inside of classes. But I just wanted to say that before I move forward, I wanted to say that each of these attributes, like even the class attributes there, each of the attributes there are mutable. So we have some data types that are immutable, like strings, int, and so forth. We also have the mutable ones like lists and dictionaries. So this particular your user-defined classes or user-defined class is a mutable one. So you can decide to maybe come down here again and say, okay, I don't want my user one to have name of me, and I want the username to now be equal to Gladys. So you can change that. You can change any of the properties. Excuse me. You can change any of the properties. You can even say, okay, I don't want the user, even the class attributes. You can say, okay, I don't want the user type to be admin again. I want the user type to now be super user. And then it just updates that. So they are mutable. Okay, so now let's talk about instant methods. So instant methods are like methods that, like I said, are defined inside the class, and only, so they can only be called from that object or from the instance of that class. So if I create a user method called, let me call this user method description. So just like in the init method, any instance method you are creating must always have the self parameters, like the first one. So in this case now we are creating a description method, and an instant method called description, and we want it to take in a username. So I want, no, let me not take in any username because we already have like defined a username. So let's say we want it to return this description. My username is username. Okay, so let's say I want to return this kind of description here. So my username is the username. So you call your instance method like this. Okay, let me just create this one. Now just say user one dot description. So I can go. In fact, let's just print it so you can see it. So let's say I want to say my username is my username. So you can just do this. And then it just prints out my username is Mia. Then you can also like have, like usually we can in user classes, we usually have like a create function. So let's say we want to have a create method. So let's say we want to create a user, like always start with your self parameter, then let's say we don't need any other thing. And then we want to create a user. So we say user is equal to how do I do this? So user is equal to okay, let me think. So let's say we have something to, let's say we are creating it on a, maybe like on a DB or something. So just say, or on it in a table. So we can just call that user. Okay, what did I say user account? So let me just say account dot create, and then we say, okay, we want you to create an account with username equal the self the username, then email equal self dot email, and then password equal to self dot password. So I'm just assuming that I'm just making assumptions here. So this is not a real class here. So I just want to use it for example. So let's say this is the method that creates this user and stores it in our database. So we now do something like user.save here. Let me just say account. And then I do something like account.save, save to DB, something like this. So now this is another instance method. So now we've created another method to save data or the user's data, register the user to our DB. So if, for example, so like that's exactly how to just create methods, instance methods inside of your classes. So say, for example, you want to print, let me close this up before it causes an error. So let's say, for example, I want to print this user. When you print this user, what comes up? User one. So you can see this is the description of this user. Not very descriptive, but this is the description of this user object. So it's kind of like weird because, like, let's say you want to, you create a list. So when you're creating a list, you're creating excuse me. So you're creating an object of type list. So let's say we're creating a list. Let me call it my list is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you print my list prints out like the values that are inside of the list. But when we are printing our own user-defined object, it doesn't print out the value. So what we can do is, if you want to print out a description of your object, you can create a function. So this function is called, this is the name of this function. Okay, this str function. So when you define this kind of function like this, whenever you print out your object or your user-defined object, it returns whatever value you want it to return. So let's print this out. Okay, there's an error. Return non-string. Okay. Do that self. Sorry. Okay, let me just print out another array. So which one is this one? Okay, I think I'm printing something else. Okay, some can go. No. 21. Okay. Okay, just give me a second. So it prints it out, but I don't know why it's throwing an error. Okay, while I fix that, so like this string method and let me go back to that. So this odd. This is okay. I'll look at that, but I don't know why it still prints out. I don't know why it still prints out. Why it still prints out this after printing out my username is this. Okay, I'll look at that later. But then these kind of functions, they are called dunder methods. These methods here. So because they begin with double underscores, that is why they're called. Okay. Okay, yeah. So I should return it instead of printing. So I hope you guys saw the error and like why it was coming up. So please, it should be a return instead of print. Okay. So that's like a much friendlier way of printing your user defined objects. All right. So those ones are called dunder methods, like I said before. So I want us to just quickly do a small exercise. Mendy.
Yeah, actually, the dunder methods of a class, right? Why do we have to uh use the okay, or what's the purpose of a dunder method other than the init, right? Why does
Okay.
this dunder string from method has to be called? Because if we are to return my name is whatever, can't we just return okay it normally without having to do this? Or with a normal function, def, that's the function name, then the argument, then whatever it does.
Yeah, but then if you like for the string method now, like you if you don't use that string method now, even if you have a description method, it doesn't like change the name of your, it doesn't change in the description of your object, does it?
So come again, I didn't get that.
So like if you have a separate method to describe your object,
Okay.
if you try to print it out, does it change the description of the object?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so like that's like the main reason for using that. And then if you are going to like be using Django, for example, if let's say you want to view your data on the dashboard, if you specify, you can use that method to specify which data, like which data or which property you want to view on the dashboard. So if you want to view just the first name, you can just say return self the first name, and then it will just return only the first name of the object instead of like the default value. So that's like basically the reason I use it. But and then apart from that, like I said, if you just have like a normal description and this thing, it's not going to change. It's not going to update the description of the name of your object.
Okay, so like this way now, this function is mutable, like it could be changed.
Yeah, you can say you can specify I don't mean like this value here.
I know. I'm like the content, like what he does.
Like what this function does. I don't understand what you mean.
Yeah, I'm
Just
actually
like
this.
saying, if you try to use another method to initialize your
No.
object.
What I'm saying is, like, if I call this function outside now, like, can I say something does this function, then change instead of saying return my name, I could say return my email.
Yeah, of course, you can.
Okay.
Okay. Someone else has his hand raised up. Okay, do it.
Okay, so I just wanted to add to what you're saying in response to what Mendy
Hello?
asked here, right? They are actually, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So all of these methods that are all of the methods that are listed here, like the init and str, actually they are recognized by Python to add custom behavior to your class, right? So for the init method that's defined there is used to give a default behavior to your class when it's being created, an object when it's being created. So as you can see from what the instructor is doing, you're like assigning the username, the email, and the password to a given the object variable self, right? So that's like giving a custom behavior for initialization. While the STR is used to give custom behavior to when you're printing the object. So you want to like give a defined description of what your object should print whenever it's being printed out. So in this case, as we saw, my username is being returned as opposed to the cryptic text that was being returned. So basically, these are recognized by Python. So instead of like just printing all of those cryptic messages, the STR function will be called, and what you are returning is going to be shown. So basically, that's just the reason we're having them, to have that custom control over when we're initializing objects and when we're printing them out.
Okay, yeah, I got that perfectly. So the str is a keyword for classes, right?
It's a method you can use to add custom control over what is being printed out for a given object, right? So if you don't have it defined, something cryptic that you may not even know that belongs to this class will be printed out. So in order to avoid that, you need to define this str function and have a descriptive message concerning your class so that it gets printed out each time you're printing objects related to that class.
All right, yeah, completely understood. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doi. So like there's still like other of those Thunder functions that you can use for operator overloading, like okay. Don't know if I want to go into that, but say you want to, so let's say you have two users and you want to say user one plus user two. So like normally it will not work, but you can use some Dunder functions like add mul and others like that to like say, okay, I want these two values to, okay, I want this value to be, I want this particular property to be added to that of the other class. So like it will just do that for you. But like that's not like the scope of what we're learning today, Sha. So I want us to do some exercises quickly. Okay. So I want us to do some exercises. Let's create a what do you call it? Let's create a class, an employee class. An employee class. So I don't know why I can't type on, but okay. Okay. So inside of the employee class, I want you to think of properties you give to an employee and inside of the init method, when you're initializing the object, I want you to add those properties and then assign them to that object. Think of like 5 properties. Find exercise. So then inside of your class, I want you to create two instance methods. Create 2 instance methods for your employee. Anyone you pick or you choose. And then add a description for your object. The description, so like inside of your employee class, you should have some you should have a property that includes the employee's ID and the employee's name, full name. So this when you are returning a description of that employee, I want you to return the employee's ID and name, full name. So is that clear? Did you guys get the exercise?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just wait on you guys. Not completely. Okay, so create an employee class, then think about some properties that you want your employee object to have. Then make sure you add an ID for your employee and you are also adding a full name property for your employee. Then also inside of your init function, assign all of those values to the object and then create add a description for your employee object. So whenever I do print a particular employee, then it should print a description that shows like like prints out the ID and the full name of that employee. can customize the description the way you like. I hope that's clear now, Emmanuel. Is anybody done? Is everybody done? Is everybody done? Okay. Okay. So I now want you guys to create an employee object. Create an employee object of your class. Have you guys initialized an object, like an employee object? Are you guys done? So when you initialize the object, just drop it in the chat so I can see it. Okay, so Mendy, accounting secretary, are they like variables that you've defined before? Or are they strings?
Oh, sorry, typo error. Sorry, I'm using my phone. That's why they are strings. Actually, I'll change them now.
Okay.
They're string.
So I want all of the employees to have like all of the employees should be, all these employees you are creating should be of a particular department, say accounting. So how do you guys should adjust your employee class? So I want all of the departments, or every employee you create should be going to the accounting department. So adjust your class. Let me see. I want every single one, like if you want every single object created from a class to have a particular property, how do you do that? If you want every single class to have, like every single object to have a particular okay, what's this? So Imole, why do you have like all of these attributes before the set data, and you don't have like an init function inside of the class? You have all these private properties. Why do you have them? Imole, can you hear me? Hello? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, so who sent, you are the one that sent this last one, yeah?
No, the second to the last.
Sorry, the second to the last one. So I'm seeing that you have like all these 5 different class attributes. So why did you set them up? Why did you define them?
So that it can print out the oh,
Okay, so which
so we should
function?
set an object, then we should set the employees data.
Okay. So when you
Yes.
create an employee now, which of the methods is going to instantiate the object?
The one that will instantiate the object
Yes,
is
because
the employee object, the EMP employee,
okay. So if you want
the
to
dev
like
name.
okay, so if you want to initialize properly, like you want to, when you're creating when you're creating your object, you want your object to have a particular property, you should use your init method. So that init method is going to allow you to pass those values you want to set to, it's help you to pass, it will pass those values and then to assign them to the object. So, but then you don't have it here. So if you create your employee object, it's not going to receive the name or the gender or the city or salary of your employee. It's just going to be, it's going to have ID is equal to 0, name equal empty string, gender, city, and all these things you set here. And then every other employee object you create are going to have these values instead of the one that you want your object to have. So inside of your employee class, okay, I see that where is she? Okay, so inside of your employee class, you can create an init method there, then pass in the values you are expecting from the object you want to create. So if you're going to pass in full name, ID, department, and all of that, you specify them you specify those parameters, then you assign those properties to the object. You get?
Okay.
Okay, so you can take a cue from the last one that was sent in. Okay, so I said that I want like all of the department, like when you create, so if you want all of your objects to have the same property, like the same property when they are initiated, you can set a class attribute. So you set your class attribute and then every single object that is created will have that particular attribute. If you want department to be accounting, now in Mendy's exercise, if I'm creating a new employee now, I can decide to say itself, I can decide to pass in department as finance or finance and accounting. So as IT. So instead of like, by the time the object is now created, that employee is going to have a department of IT. So, but if you don't want to do that, you want it to automatically become accounting, you can remove this particular one, remove this department called accounting and put it at the top of, like, if just right above the init method. And then every single object is going to have department accounting, although it is still mutable. But that's for like instantiating the object. So how do we know, like, let's say inside of here now, I create a user one is equal to user. What is it? Okay. Yeah, something like that. That's correct. So I've not seen from a manual though. So let's say, how do we know which class this user belongs to? So let's say I instantiated the object here, and then down, I want to use it in another file, or down, I want to use user one. How do I know if what class user one belongs to? Who can tell me? Who can tell me? How do we know? How do we verify which class a particular object belongs to?
If I'm right, you print the class, right?
Okay.
If you are defined the str method already, you just print the class. Then your description there should let you know which class it belongs to.
But what if I already have, like in this case now, if I print user one, I'm going to get my username is maybe my username. So assuming that, does anybody know? So we can use this instance user one and then your class. So it will give you a Boolean value. If it does not belong to that class, it's to give you a false value. Okay, so everybody has like submitted. Okay. So yeah, that's that. So do you guys have questions? Are there questions? Do you have questions? Let me quickly, my battery is getting low. Are there any questions you guys have? Okay, no questions. So you guys have an assignment though. I'm coming, just give me a second. I need to check something. So please give me a second. I'm trying to. Somebody doesn't want assignments. Please just give me a second. I'm trying to look for something. Okay. The person that will even send his assignment before everybody is the one that is now whining us. Leave us for God. Why is, sorry. Just give me a second. I don't want to. Okay, so I basically want you guys to write a function and to write a function, not now, that like that's your assignment, but then it's going to have some, it's going to have like do some checks. So I can't remember where I dropped it. It's going to do some checks. Then I want you guys to read up on inheritance in Python. Yeah, you need that. So you guys should read up on inheritance in Python. Then and also read up what should I read out? Read up input and output. So but then I want you to have like, can everybody see the assignment? I just typed. Sorry. Let's say yes. Okay, so I want you guys, I've typed it inside of the chat. So it's going to do some checks. So if you read, I want you to read input out because it's going to help you to receive data from the user. So if a user sends in a value that cannot be converted, say like, please your code. If the user sends in like a string or a non-type, then you should print out an appropriate message. Okay. So let me ask. Joey, are you on this call?
Yeah, sure. I'm here.
Okay. So that's like the first assignment. So like that's the first assignment. You are going to write another function again. Just give me a second though. I'm not able to find what I'm looking for then. Okay, so I'm sure all of you have like a GitHub account here. You all have GitHub accounts. Or you can just create an account on Replit. Yeah. So create an account on Replit and you send when you let me send you a link here, please. Just give me a second. So everyone. So can you see the link? The link I just sent. So you create yeah. So you create a repo there and then add your code there. You can add me to your code. Like you can share, or in fact, just send me the link. I think that should be better. So there's still one more assignment coming up that I'll add to the one that I sent to you. So, and I'll also like tell you what checks you should look out for, like the checks you should look out for when you're computing your Celsius to Fahrenheit thing. Okay, Toye, do you have something else to say?
Nope, I'm good from my end.
Andy, please, your question.
Yeah, I was going to ask if is going the assignment is going to be sent like the way we get other assignments on the group on the Slack channel.
It will be sent to the Slack channel. It will be sent to the Slack channel.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So it's the Replit link that you sent. There's no need for a GitHub link again. So just send the Replit link. So there's still going to be another assignment, and you guys should just keep your heads up. And then there's going to be a quiz for tomorrow. We'll send the link to the quiz tomorrow, so you guys can see like how much you guys understand or know right now. So I hope that there are no other questions. Like, that's all for my end here.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Karen. That was very insightful. Mr. Doye, also thank you for joining us. Okay, and everyone, as usual, thank you once again. So your assignments will be posted on the group, on the Slack channel. So just look out for it. Okay, to be dropped. We'll drop it today. Yeah, definitely today. Okay, so thank you guys. Before we go, Mendy, unmute yourself, please.
Yes.
How many tracks are you in, young man?
Just Python and PHP. That's all.
You do know you cannot submit two things, right?
Yeah, I'm aware. I'm submitting for Python.
Oh, okay. So PHP is the extra for you. Python is the main thing, right?
Yeah, Python is the main thing for me. Yes.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, every other person on this call, Python is the number one for you, right? Okay, so I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, yeah. So as your mentor said, another assignment is going to be coming up. So just watch out for it. So I think this will just drop this on the. I think probably okay. It will be on the stage 4 channel since you're in stage 4. Yeah. So to be on the stage 4 channel. So if you're not in stage 4, please do well to get there so you can get the assignment. Please, the assignment link should not leave stage 4. It should not leave stage 4. Okay. So thank you very much, guys.